War is a brutal and terrible thing that often causes a tremendous loss of life. For the women and men of the armed services, it's also part of their job. And even once the war is over, they're faced with traumatic memories almost daily. Many soldiers who come home from war might not have external injuries, but that doesn't mean they aren't in pain. For some, the trauma of war and everything they've seen can make daily life almost unbearable. When veteran Josh Marino came home from war, he was diagnosed with PTSD. He struggled to overcome it, but eventually decided to try and take his own life. Thankfully, that didn't exactly go according to plan, and it was all because of one unlikely savior.
But before we start, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an upload from us. Also, leave a like right now.
For the men and women of our armed forces, the war doesn't end when they come home. For many, the trauma of war can culminate in post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Iraq War veteran Sergeant Josh Marino was no exception. He survived a traumatic brain injury, but coming back home and trying to readjust was hell for this vet with PTSD. Said Josh, a lot of us come home without realizing we're bringing the war home with us. For him, the battle to recover from his trauma was so intense that it drove him to thoughts of suicide. Josh set one of his knives on his desk and left a goodbye note on his computer. He then went outside to have one last cigarette at the Fort Riley Barracks in Kansas, where he lived. It was a decision that would change his life forever. As he finished his last smoke on the front steps in the rain, something unexpected stopped him in his tracks. Josh suddenly heard a strange noise coming from the bushes near his apartment. It sounded like a small crying. Then, out of nowhere, a black and white kitten appeared. The tiny animal immediately began mewing at the troubled vet. He just walked up and started rubbing up against my leg, and he let me pet him, remembered Josh. I broke down crying. I burst into tears. It was the last thing he ever expected, and it didn't stop there. Faced with this animal, who so clearly needed his help, Josh put aside his plans to take his life. Josh said, I stopped thinking about all my problems and started thinking about all his problems and what I could do to help him. Josh credited the kitten's surprise appearance as a truly pivotal, life-saving moment for him. He began to set out a can of tuna every day, and soon the cat recognized Josh's voice and would come to him whenever he returned home from work and called out for him. Then something heartbreaking happened. Josh came home like usual, but the kitten never showed up. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. Josh said, when I found out he wasn't around anymore, it devastated me. He had a serious effect on me. He made me realize that not only could I care for somebody else, but that other people could care for me. Josh started dating a woman he'd known since high school, named Becky, and while she was visiting him a few months later, the pair wandered into a local animal adoption event. As they walked down an aisle surrounded by crates, Josh felt a paw smack his arm. He said, I looked inside, and it's that same little black and white cat. I opened up that cage and I pulled him out, and I held him tight. He named the kitten Scout and adopted him that very day. Soon after, Josh moved back to his hometown of Pittsburgh, where Becky lived with 3 cats of her own, and the pair got married. Josh started taking proactive measures to return to a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life. He stayed in shape, ate healthier, and even quit smoking. He earned his master's degree in clinical rehabilitation too, so he could work with veterans. He said, I knew if I had a support network at home, even if it included a cat, then yeah, I could do just about anything. Josh might have rescued Scout from an uncertain fate when he adopted him, but it was Scout's unconditional love for Josh that truly made a difference. He said, even before he was my cat, before he knew me that well, he saved my life. Often, when all hope seems lost, it's our relationships with our pets that can help us make it through. Josh and Scout's story is a powerful reminder of how important it is to maintain a support group, even if it's just a cat.